Have you ever found yourself wondering if true, unchanging reality is something we can actually know? Or, are we perhaps forever trapped inside our own minds, just seeing a subjective, kind of filtered version of the world?
It's a huge question, a timeless one, really.
Exactly. And it feels even more vital today, doesn't it? In a world that often seems to question what's real, what's true, what's just, well, opinion.
Absolutely. The ground feels shapy sometimes.
So today on the deep dive, we're plunging into a work that offers a really compelling answer, I think. It challenges a lot of our modern assumptions.
Which book is that?
It's Dietrich von Hildebrand's incredibly insightful book, What is Philosophy?
Ah, Hildebrand, a fascinating figure.
Right. And this isn't just some dusty old academic text. He frames it as a revolutionary invitation almost to shatter our ideas about knowledge.
To see how we can grasp deeper truths.
Precisely. Truths about existence, morality, even ourselves.
It's a truly remarkable work, and, Hildebrand himself was quite a remarkable man.
Tell us a bit about him. His background really adds weight to his philosophy, doesn't it?
It really does. His intellectual rigor was matched only by his profound moral courage. Born in Florence, 1889.
Okay.
He became a fierce, really outspoken opponent of Nazism, which you can imagine was no small thing back then.
Absolutely not.
He was actually forced to flee Germany in 1933, then Austria in 1938 when the Nazis invaded.
Wow.
And his unwavering belief in objective truth, in absolute values, the very things we're digging into today, that wasn't just theoretical for him, wasn't just academic.
No, it sounds like it was lived experience.
It was the bedrock of his moral courage. He'd rather flee persecution than compromise his principles. He eventually found refuge, taught at Fordham University in New York until he retired.
And his work was well regarded.
Immensely so. Especially in phenomenology and ethics. Edmund Husserl himself.
The founder of phenomenology.
The very same. Phenomenology, that method focusing on, the direct intuitive grasp of essences, the structures of consciousness. Yeah. Stripping away assumptions to see things as they are.
Right.
Husserl called Hildebrand's doctoral thesis, the idea of a moral action, he called it an opus eximium.
Which means?
An extraordinary work. High praise indeed. Husserl specifically noted Hildebrand's rare gift to draw on the depths of phenomenological intuition and to analyze the object of these intuitions sharply.
So this isn't just abstract thinking. It's rooted in a rigorous method applied by someone with deep convictions.
Exactly. It's a deeply principled man, steeped in this careful method, grappling with the most fundamental questions. What it means to be human, what we can genuinely know.
That endorsement from Husserl certainly lends immense credibility, and it underscores that what is philosophy isn't just, a dry academic exercise.
Not at all.
It really feels like an invitation to understand the very essence of philosophical inquiry itself. So for anyone out there curious about existence, morality, the nature of reality, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Hildebrand argues philosophy helps us understand life itself, fundamentally.
Yeah, he says it cuts through the noise, gets to the heart of what it means to question, to long, to hope. These attitudes, he argues, disclose man's status via
his earthly journey, ordered toward eternity.
Oh.
It's a powerful framing.
It is. He's basically saying philosophy isn't a luxury. It's essential to our very being.
Absolutely. He starts by grounding philosophy right in our inherent human experience. He reminds us that man on this earthly journey is fundamentally a questioner.
The big questions.
The big questions, yeah. The basic classical ones that have preoccupied humanity for millennia. Questions about the meaning of the world, the meaning of life, our destiny, and especially the ultimate root of being.
Things we all ponder at some point.
Exactly. These aren't just abstract puzzles for academics. He calls them absolute questions that live, however deeply buried, in the heart of every person. Think about it. Deep down, who hasn't wondered about their purpose or what might lie beyond this life?
True.
Hildebrand argues that philosophical inquiry itself is a unique form of knowledge interest. It represents a completely new stage of awakening for the human mind.
An awakening. How so?
It leads to a participation in being that is, he says, incomparably higher than other types of knowledge. It's about moving from simply existing to truly comprehending why we exist.
Okay, let's unpack that core idea then, because Hildebrand makes a crucial distinction right off the bat, doesn't he? Between philosophical knowledge and scientific knowledge.
Yes, that's foundational for him.
And it's not about pitting them against each other or saying one's better.
No, not at all.
But understanding their distinct domains, both valid but different. How does he lay that out? And why is that distinction so critical for him?
Well, what's really fascinating here is how he clarifies it. Science, he says, primarily deals with empirical data, observable phenomena, things you can measure, test, verify through. He calls it blunt observation.
Okay, like lab results, data points.
Precisely. Science can tell you what happens when heat expands bodies. It can give you the precise chemical composition of water or map in the neurological activity in the brain during an emotion.
The how and the observable what?
Exactly. But, he argues, science cannot tell you what motion itself is in its essence, or what beauty is beyond maybe a statistical analysis of preferences, or what love truly means beyond its neurochemical correlates.
Ah, I see. So science describes the mechanics, the phenomena.
Yes, the how and the what in terms of phenomena. But philosophy seeks to understand the essential nature, the such being, the why of things.
The such being, that term seems important.
It is. It's the difference maybe between describing a painting's chemical composition and truly understanding its aesthetic essence, its beauty.
Right. One is analysis of parts, the other is grasp of the whole, the nature. So if science observes the surface, philosophy goes deeper to grasp this such being. You mentioned such being experience. Could you elaborate on that? It sounds absolutely key.
It really is key. The such being experience is Hildebrand's term for how we grasp the essential characteristics of objects and experiences.
Yeah.
We move beyond just their empirical properties.
How does that work? Is it thinking really hard?
It's more like an intuitive contact, a direct apprehension of the essence itself. He gives an example. When we analyze the nature of love,
Okay.
we don't just collect empirical examples, Romeo loves Juliet, Heathcliff is obsessed in Wuthering Heights, and then try to generalize from those cases. No. He says we are guided by an intuitive contact with the nature of love itself.
An intuition about love's essence.
Exactly. And this allows us to discern, for instance, that certain elements, like pride or self-assertion in Heathcliff's case, are fundamentally incompatible with authentic love, even if they might be mixed up with it in a real person.
So we have an inner sense of what love truly is that lets us judge real-world examples.
Precisely. And this isn't just some high-level philosophical thing. It's how we grasp essences in daily life, too.
Like when?
Well, when you meet someone and genuinely feel this person has integrity, or you hear music and instinctively know that is genuinely beautiful.
You're not just cataloging actions or notes.
No, you're engaging in a form of such being experience. You're having a direct, non-empirical connection with these deeper realities, integrity, beauty.
He calls it a spiritual infiltration into the object.
Yes, not a mere production or a copy in our minds. It's a real contact. And he believes it's a fundamental capacity we all possess, though maybe we don't always recognize its philosophical weight.
That's a powerful distinction. So it's not like using a microscope, his blunt observation, but activating a different kind of intellectual key to access these deeper realities.
That's a good way to put it.
And he's pretty critical then of the idea that philosophy is just a handmaid to the sciences, right? He really pushes back against reducing philosophy to scientific methods.
Oh, strongly. And this raises an important question he addresses. Why would some people deny philosophy its own unique domain?
Yeah, why?
Hildebrand points to what he calls a pseudo-philosophy, often linked with positivism. It mistakenly tries to apply the methods of blunt observation and tangible verification methods fine for science to philosophical realities.
Which doesn't work.
It leads them to either completely overlook these realities or, worse, reduce them to something else entirely.
Like how?
Well, ethics gets reduced to sociology, maybe. Epistemology, the study of knowledge, becomes just experimental psychology. Metaphysics gets denied altogether, dismissed as meaningless talk.
Then nothing else but trap.
Exactly. That nothing else but formula, he argues, is deeply corrosive to human life. When we say love is nothing else but neurochemical reactions.
Or consciousness is nothing else but electrical impulses.
Or morality is nothing else but social conditioning. He says we become blind to the real cosmos. We end up ignoring the great and fundamental realities of a personal human life.
Wow. He suggests it's almost driven by an inferiority complex towards philosophy?
Paradoxically, yes, coupled with an arrogant, snobbish attitude toward its actual topics.
You know, that nothing else but reduction feels so pervasive in our modern world. Everything from love to consciousness often gets boiled down to just brain chemistry or just social constructs.
It does.
Hildebrand seems to be warning us that this kind of intellectual reductionism doesn't just simplify, it actively blinds us. It makes me wonder what essential parts of our humanity we might be inadvertently dismissing.
That's a powerful takeaway right there. It's a profound critique.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just academia. It's about not just what we know, but fundamentally how we know it and what that implies about reality itself. Which leads us perfectly into his discussion of the basic forms of knowledge. He draws another distinction between taking cognizance and knowing. At first, that sounds like semantics.
But it's much more profound than that.
Yes. How does he explain that one?
He differentiates between the dynamic process of acquiring knowledge that's taking cognizance and the static possession of it, which is knowing.
Okay, so acquiring versus possessing.
Think of taking cognizance as the act of learning something for the first time. It's dynamic, an appropriation. It happens at a specific moment.
Like when you first heard about, say, the fall of the Berlin Wall, you took cognizance of that new information.
Exactly. Your mind actively engaged with and integrated something new. That's the process.
And knowing then is when you already have it. If someone else tells you about the Berlin Wall, you say, yeah, I know that already.
Precisely. Knowing in this static sense isn't a process of appropriation involving change. It's a possession that can. He uses the term perdure superactually.
Okay. Perdure superactually. What does that mean in plain English?
It basically means it endures beyond its active use. It persists even when you're not consciously thinking about it.
Ah, like knowing how to ride a bike or speak a language you learned years ago.
Perfect examples. You don't have to be thinking about pedaling or consciously recalling grammar rules to know how to ride or speak.
The knowledge is just there, ready to be used.
Exactly. It's there, deep in your system, ready to be actualized whenever you need it. It subsists within us, even when we're not actively thinking about it, but it's capable of being immediately actualized.
And this superactual knowing forms a kind of basis for our lives.
Yes, a continuous basis.
Yeah.
It subtly modifies our perceptions and thoughts in countless ways, often implicitly. It's a deep foundational layer of what makes us who we are, shaping our reactions, our understanding of the world.
That's fascinating. So it's not just memory recall, it's like an active underlying awareness shaping our whole mental landscape.
You could say that.
And then within this deeper category of knowing, he subdivides it again, using the German terms Wissen and Kennen.
He does. It feels maybe a bit German, that distinction, but it clarifies a lot about the different depths or types of knowledge we possess.
Okay, break that down for us. Wissen versus Kennen.
So when Hildebrand talks about Wissen, he means knowing states of facts.
Exclusively.
Like, I know that the moon is round, or I know that Rome is the capital of Italy. Factual propositions.
Got it. Stuff you know that.
Right. And this kind of knowing, Wissen, allows for degrees of certitude. You can know something with absolute certainty, or maybe just high probability. It's about factual information.
Okay. And Kennen.
Kennen, on the other hand, refers to knowing all types of being that are not states of facts.
So not knowing that, but knowing what?
Knowing a person, I know John. Or knowing a work of art, I know Picasso's Guernica well. Knowing a place, I know Paris.
Ah, familiarity, acquaintance.
Exactly. And here you have gradations of intimacy and completeness. You can know someone superficially or know them well or truly know them through and through with great depth and differentiation.
That makes sense. You don't know a person with certainty in the same way you know a fact.
Right. And these two, Wissen and Kennen, continually interpenetrate. Your factual knowledge, Wissen about a friend's history or personality, enriches the depth of your personal having knowledge of Kennen, that friend.
Like knowing facts about Paris versus truly knowing Paris from living there.
Perfect. One is intellectual apprehension of facts. The other is a profound, often experiential familiarity.
That distinction really resonates. You can know that someone is a good person based on reputation, Wissen, but you have knowledge of Kennen, their goodness, through lived experience, seeing their character in action.
Precisely. It's the difference between information and genuine understanding in a way.
Okay. So if philosophical knowledge isn't primarily about empirical facts, Wissen about scientific observations, or just factual recall, what are the objects of philosophical knowledge, according to Hildebrand? What is philosophy actually trying to get at?
This is where it gets really profound and ties back to the such being. Hildebrand asserts that the object of philosophy is primarily of an a priori nature.
A priori. Now that word immediately brings Kant to mind for many people.
And we definitely need to get into that comparison. It's crucial. But for Hildebrand, a priori knowledge doesn't depend on experience in the sense of blunt observation or scientific induction.
Okay, not empirical experience.
Right. However, and this is critical, that it absolutely does depend on such being experience, that intuitive grasp of essence we talked about.
Ah, so it's not independent of all experience, just independent of empirical, factual, scientific style experience.
Exactly. It relies on that deeper intuitive contact with the nature of things.
This sounds incredibly important. So what does Hildebrand mean by a priori then? Is it about necessary truths, universal truths?
Precisely. For Hildebrand, a priori facts possess two main characteristics. First, they are necessarily grounded in what he calls a necessary such being unity.
Meaning their truth isn't accidental or random.
Correct. It flows from the very essence of the things themselves. It couldn't be otherwise.
Okay, necessity. What's the second characteristic?
Second, and this is key, they can be understood by us with absolute certainty, either through direct intuitive givenness, that moment of insight, or through rigorous deductive inference.
Absolute certainty.
Yes. And this gives them an incomparable intelligibility. We don't just know that they are true, we grasp why they must be true, the intrinsic necessity behind them.
An understanding from within.
Exactly. He uses the term intelligery, this deep comprehension of the inherent logic of a truth, and he says this is unique to these necessary, essential, a priori facts.
So it's not just knowing that, say, 7 + 5 = 12, which feels self-evident.
Although that would be an example too.
Right, but it's also something more profound, maybe, like his examples. Moral values presuppose a person, or beauty requires a qualitative richness.
Yes, those are excellent examples he might use. These are necessary truths we can grasp with certainty, independent of empirical observation.
And they seem to reveal something genuinely new about reality, not just defined terms.
You're hitting on a crucial point there. He emphasizes that these propositions are synthetic.
Synthetic a priori. Okay, that's a famous philosophical term, often associated with Kant, too. What does Hildebrand mean by it?
For him, synthetic means they offer new content. They add to our knowledge. They aren't just definitional tautologies like all bachelors are unmarried men. That's analytic true by definition, doesn't add anything new. Synthetic a priori propositions instead add new knowledge. They're synthetic, yet they are known with absolute certainty, not through empirical experience, they're a priori.
Can you give another example?
He uses ones like orange lies between red and yellow in the color spectrum, or love includes a desire for union.
Right. You don't need to conduct a survey of lovers to know love involves wanting union. You grasp it intuitively.
Exactly. You don't need to mix paints to know orange's place. You intuitively grasp the necessary structure. In fact, Hildebrand sees these synthetic a priori truths as the prototype of firmness of content within the sphere of knowledge.
More full than empirical facts.
Yes, he argues they surpass mere empirical propositions in expressing worthwhile and genuinely new content. They reveal the very structure of reality to us.
Wow. So these a priori insights, this knowledge of essences, this is what he calls the Archimedean point.
Yes, the fixed, unmovable leverage point for evaluating our knowledge as a whole.
This is the solid ground, the serene, eternal gate that bars skepticism and relativism, an antidote to that nothing else but reductionism we talked about earlier.
Precisely. He sees it as a direct and forceful blow to all forms of subjective idealism.
The idea that reality is just in our minds.
Or that we could only ever know our own ideas.
Yeah.
In each of these a priori insights, Hildebrand argues, we definitively transcend the frame of our own mind.
We touch something outside ourselves.
We touch a fully autonomous being, he says. We enter a world of full objectivity and objective validity.
Which stands in stark contrast to the idea that our knowledge is always trapped in subjectivity, forever cut off from reality as it is.
Exactly. It's a powerful affirmation of an objective reality that is both knowable and deeply meaningful.
That's a pretty strong claim. These insights refute idealism and guarantee access to objective truth. And this brings us squarely to that major philosophical crossroads. Hildebrand's view on knowing the thing in itself versus Kant's hugely influential idea of the a priori.
Yes, this is where the paths really diverge with massive implications.
So for Hildebrand, just to be clear, we can know the thing in itself. We can know objective reality as it is.
That's absolutely central to his entire philosophical project.
Yeah.
Yes. Hildebrand fundamentally believes that philosophical truth, these essences are discovered, not constructed by the human mind.
We find them, we don't make them.
Correct. When we grasp the essence of willing, courage, love, whatever, we're not creating it. We are intuitively penetrating its necessary and intelligible structure as it is in reality, independent of us.
And this ability proves we transcend our own minds.
He argues exactly that. The ability to attain absolutely certain insights into essentially necessary truths delivers a decisive blow to subjective idealism, because it proves we definitely and undoubtedly transcend the frame of any relation to our own mind.
We break free, so to speak.
We are truly admitted, he believes, to a world of full objectivity, a world that exists independently of our perception or our thought processes.
This is such a departure from what you hear in a lot of modern philosophy, isn't it? Which often emphasizes the mind's active role in constructing, or at least heavily shaping, our reality.
It is a significant departure from many strands of thought, yeah.
So if we can know the thing in itself, if we can grasp these objective essences, what are the implications? For knowledge, for transcendence, what does that mean for us as individuals?
The consequences are profound, liberating even. If we can truly grasp these objective, independent essences, it opens up the possibility for a deeper, more direct understanding of objective realities and of transcendence.
Meaning
there are truths and values that exist independently of our cognition, waiting to be discovered. They aren't just products of our subjective mental frameworks or social conventions.
that really pushes back against relativism.
It does, and it stands in stark opposition to philosophies that might dismiss personal acts like joy, love, conviction as merely psychological.
As if psychological means not really real.
Exactly. Hildebrand explicitly counters this. He argues that such subjective realities are, in fact, fully objective realities. And get this, he says they are surprisingly more metaphysical than even material objects like stones.
More metaphysical than a stone. How?
In terms of their dignity, their rank of reality, he argues they embody real, profound parts of our ontological being, our existence.
So, my capacity for joy isn't just a fleeting feeling or a chemical reaction?
In his view, no. It's a gateway to an objective reality, something perhaps even more fundamental in a sense than a rock.
That's a fascinating reframe. It challenges our usual hierarchy of what counts as real. Even our internal states can have objective reality, defying that dismissive, merely psychological label.
Precisely.
Okay, now let's bring Immanuel Kant into the picture properly. His concept of the a priori is, it's enormous, a cornerstone of Western philosophy. But Hildebrand sees it very different.
Radically differently in some ways.
How does Kant view the a priori? And how does that perspective limit our knowledge in a way Hildebrand tries to overcome?
Right. So Kant agreed that certain knowledge is independent of experience. It's a priori. No argument there.
Okay.
But he believed this knowledge is based on the structure of the mind itself.
Not on the structure of reality.
No. For Kant, concepts like space, time, and the categories of understanding things like causality, unity, substance, they aren't derived from experience. They are necessary preconditions for us to have any experience at all.
Like filters.
Exactly like filters. Or innate frameworks that our mind imposes on the raw, chaotic data of sensation coming from the outside. So we don't perceive the world as it is in itself. We perceive it as filtered through the lens of our mind's inherent structure.
So for Kant, we can't really know the thing in itself, what he called the noumenal world.
Correct. We can only know phenomena appearances as they are structured by our minds.
It's like wearing glasses you can never take off.
That's a classic analogy, and a good one.
You can describe the world you see through the glasses, meticulously even, but you can never know what the world looks like without them.
Precisely. Those glasses are like our mind's innate structures, space, time, categories. And the world without the glasses is the thing in itself, the noumenon, forever beyond our direct grasp, according to Kant.
That's an excellent analogy. It really hits on Kant's limitation, or at least what Hildebrand saw as the limitation.
Exactly. Kant's view, while incredibly brilliant and groundbreaking in its own right, ultimately confines knowledge to phenomena. It closes off the possibility of knowing the thing in itself, or any objective knowledge that genuinely transcends the limits of human cognition.
And Kant thought applying reason beyond experience led to problems.
Yes. He believed that while we can have synthetic a priori judgments in mathematics and geometry, because they deal with the structure of our intuition, space, and time, applying reason to metaphysics, trying to understand the essence of God, the soul, the world as a whole, leads to antinomies.
Irresolvable contradictions.
Right, because our rational faculties are trying to apply categories like causality beyond the limits of possible sense experience where they don't belong, according to him.
And Hildebrand disagreed.
Strongly. Hildebrand specifically critiques Kant for overlooking the synthetic a priori character of propositions in ethics, metaphysics, aesthetics, and other fields of philosophy. He suggests Kant's whole theory of knowledge, which denied intellectual intuition any role apart from just structuring sensory experience in time and space. Well, that was the root of this profound error.
So Hildebrand believed in a kind of intellectual intuition that Kant denied.
Yes. For Hildebrand, true intellectual intuition can indeed grasp essences directly. And that's precisely what he thought Kant missed, leading Kant to restrict knowledge unnecessarily.
Okay, so we have two radically different implications here for what we can actually know.
Huge difference.
On one side, Hildebrand opens the door wide to objective, transcendent knowledge, a whole universe of knowable essences and values that exist independently of us.
A reality we can participate in directly.
On the other side, Kant, while asserting certainty within limits, restricts that certainty to the realm of human cognition and its structures, potentially locking us out of the deepest reality, the thing in itself.
That's the core tension.
It feels like the stakes here are incredibly high for how we understand truth, morality, even our own human potential.
The implications are vast, not just for epistemology, the theory of knowledge, but for our entire understanding of human existence, what it means to be human.
How so?
Well, Hildebrand's perspective, by asserting the objective validity and knowability of essences and spiritual realities, it suggests that truth and meaning are inherent in the fabric of being itself.
Not just constructions of our minds.
Exactly. They're woven into reality, waiting to be discovered. This invites a direct, intuitive engagement with that reality, leading to a deeper, more intimate participation in being.
He calls it a philosophical eros, a longing for knowledge.
Yes, this passionate longing for knowledge. And its aim, he says, is becoming accepted into the kingdom of truth as such. It's a striving for knowledge that he sees as deeply rooted in our fundamental orientation toward God as the ultimate source of all being and truth.
So it's not just intellectual curiosity for him.
No, it's much deeper. It's a yearning for the ultimate ground of reality itself.
It sounds like Hildebrand's view really empowers the human mind then. It allows us to genuinely connect with objective truth. It makes philosophy a way to penetrate reality, which he sees as an image of God, right?
He does use that language, yes. It connects our knowing to the ultimate source.
And this contrasts sharply with any framework that might lead to, say, relativism, or even nihilism, where truth becomes purely subjective or just a social construct or reducible to something like power dynamics.
It absolutely does. While Kant's insights were profound, no doubt, and shifted philosophy dramatically.
Leading to important critical thinking.
For sure. But Hildebrand sees a real danger in extending Kant's restrictions too far. If knowledge is only about how our mind structures phenomena,
then objective truths become problematic.
Especially in areas like morality, aesthetics, metaphysics, they become much harder to ground objectively. You see later empiricists and philosophers of science, people like Karl Popper or Thomas Kuhn.
With hypotheses and paradigms.
Right. While they introduced valid points about scientific progress, they still often struggled with finding ultimate criteria for verification or falsification, purely within empirical experience. Sometimes this even led them towards abandoning the claim to absolute truth altogether, or reducing science to just solving puzzles rather than a serious quest for fundamental truths about reality.
And Hildebrand pushes against all that.
Vigorously. He champions philosophy's mission to, as he puts it, sweep away the sog which comes from inorganic theoretical reasoning and destroy all the transgressions of the undigested results of different sciences into the metaphysical sphere.
Clearing the air, basically.
Yes. It's about recovering genuine reality, objective values, eternal truths from, misapplications of methodology and intellectual reductionism. It's a call for intellectual humility, but also clarity about what philosophy can achieve.
This is a powerful distinction, and it really clarifies Hildebrand's contribution, doesn't it? It's like he's trying to rehabilitate philosophy, give it back its rightful place.
Not just a place, but a primary place.
Not just the handmaid to the sciences.
But perhaps the queen of knowledge, in a way.
Yeah.
The pursuit that unlocks the deepest realities. He sees philosophical knowledge as the prototype of knowledge.
Prototype.
The highest perfection of knowledge within the natural sphere. He believes it grants a participation in being that's incomparably higher than other types of knowing. This philosophical questioning, this eros, aims at a participation in being that is indescribably deeper and more intimately related to eternity.
Wow.
This passion, this solemnity he feels for true philosophical knowledge is deeply grounded for him in the metaphysical situation of man, in our being ordered toward God as the source of all being and truth. It's a profound human activity, not just an academic discipline.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Dietrich von Hildebrand's What is Philosophy, It's really clear his work is, well, it's a clarion call for the enduring significance of philosophy and, frankly, for objective truth itself.
It really is a defense of knowing reality.
He masterfully distinguishes philosophical knowledge from scientific inquiry, not to diminish science at all,
No, he respects science in its domain.
but to elevate philosophy to its rightful place in grasping the essential, the necessary, the objectively true. His concept of such being experience, that provides such a robust framework for understanding our intuitive, almost spiritual engagement with reality.
And his analysis of knowing, taking cognizance versus knowing, Wissen versus Kennen, gives us a really nuanced map of our own intellectual landscape, how we relate to the world through knowledge.
Indeed. And Hildebrand's forceful refutation of subjective idealism, particularly arguing we can grasp a priori truths and therefore the thing in itself, that's a huge contribution.
Monumental, really. He starkly contrasts this with Kant's influential but ultimately limiting view of knowledge confined just to phenomena. He reminds us that knowledge of objective transcendent realities isn't just possible. He thinks it's essential.
Essential for understanding existence, morality, our place in the cosmos.
And his work challenges us constantly to look deeper, to reconsider what we mean by real. Remember how he said even personal experiences like joy or love are fully objective realities.
And more metaphysical than inanimate objects. That still blows my mind a little.
It certainly challenges our assumptions, doesn't it? It asks us to look deeper into the nature of what is truly real.
And it leaves us with a profound invitation, really. An invitation to engage with philosophy not as some abstract academic game,
No.
but as a fundamental human activity, a deep questioning that awakens the mind to new stages of awareness and intimately connects us, potentially, to eternal truths. It's a reminder that maybe our deepest longings for meaning and truth aren't actually in vain.
It absolutely does leave us with that. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Hildebrand's philosophy speaks directly to that inherent questioning, longing, and hope that seem to define our human journey. It suggests our capacity for philosophical inquiry isn't just intellectual curiosity playing around. It's a profound yearning for truth that resonates with the very order of being itself.
Which leads to a final thought, perhaps.
I think so. It raises an important question for you to ponder. If the human mind is so profoundly ordered toward discovering such objective, eternal truths as Hildebrand argues it is, what does that imply about the source and the ultimate media of those truths?
If our minds are built to grasp reality.
What does that tell us about reality?
Yeah.
And maybe about ourselves. What does it mean if our minds are literally built to grasp reality, not just interpret it? It's definitely something to think about long after a deep dive